In this video, we're gonna talk PlayStation 5 and everything you need to know about this upcoming console. I will be covering release date, price, how it will perform, and much more. Now, if you're new, hey, my name is Robin. I test gaming hardware, basically, and so if you're interested in that, consider subscribing and don't forget to tap the notification bell so that you don't miss out on future videos. And once again, I want to give a shout out to Jim over on Adore TV, who is providing all of us with solid information all the time. Before we start, I want you guys to learn a new term here today. It's called semi-custom. This is the term that is used to explain the graphics and the CPU solution that is fitted inside the consoles. Right now, AMD is making both the CPU and the GPU in the current generation consoles, and they will be continuing doing that for the upcoming Xbox and PlayStation 5 as well. This has guaranteed a steady cash flow for AMD for the last couple of years, and so it would make sense that they don't want this cash flow to go away anytime soon. Now, getting paid for every sold Xbox and PlayStation console, AMD must be wealthy as fudge. There's a but here, however. Semi-custom or tailored-made circuits is a thin margin area, and AMD doesn't make that much from this, but it has a guaranteed steady cash flow income, especially as they make these performing components both for the Sony PlayStation 4, the Sony PlayStation 4 Pro, the Xbox One X, the Xbox One S, and the original Xbox. It is therefore reasonable that they have also invested considerable resources on the next generation, even if it has been at the expense of any success on the high-end PC gamer. And while this is not the topic for this video, this is the main reason why AMD aren't competing with Nvidia. Let me give you guys a quick recap here. So the Zen architecture has taken AMD about 4 to 5 years of development. This is roughly what it takes to come up with a brand new architecture. See, back in 2012, this is where AMD first talked about the Zen architecture being their upcoming processor lineup. Now, for AMD, gaming consoles has for a long time been their main priority, and when they launched the Radeon RX 480 in June 2016, after being completely overrun by Nvidia's 9 series released in 2014 and 2015, it was clear that AMD's main focus wasn't trying to compete against Nvidia on selling the fastest performing graphics card. The RX 480 simply couldn't compete with Nvidia's 9 series in the top end range. Now, this was early signs that gaming consoles were in fact a bigger focus for them, so instead of simply spending money to try and compete with Nvidia in the high-end range, AMD instead decided to further develop the Xbox One at the time, shrinking the architecture down to 28 nanometer. It simply was no way for AMD to keep up with Nvidia and still being able to further develop and sink even more money into the console market. Something simply had to give. All these decisions play a huge role as AMD has been working for years to develop the next architecture for the PlayStation 5, and according to many articles on the internet, the reason why Navi exists, AMD's upcoming graphics card lineup, is simply because of the PlayStation 5. Now let's look at some more interesting leaks. It actually turns out that there is this pretty awesome Reddit user named Ruthetic Cookie sitting on some really interesting information here. It all began when he leaked the information that Sony wouldn't attend this year's E3 one day before the news went public. The reason why Sony decided to ditch E3 this year, according to Cookie on Reddit, is that they simply blew all their load this year and got nothing new to show this year, and that they want to show new stuff at PSX. Now, after Cookie being correct on the Sony E3 statement, he blew up on Reddit and people started asking him additional questions, very interesting questions by the way, some of which he also answered. Again, you have to take all of these rumors with a grain of salt, guys, but he seems to know what he's talking about. It turns out that Cookie has a friend who has connections in the business Who would have thought, right? Anyway, now people kept asking questions and he actually answered some of them. For example, PlayStation 5 will be released in 2020. Now it's still unclear if Sony decides to release it in March or in November, but 2020 seems to be the time frame here. Again, this is all just rumors, guys, but as always, I want to know what you guys think as well. Do you think that Sony will release the PlayStation 5 early 2020 or by the end of 2020? Or do you think that they will release it in 2019 already? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, let's go back. So according to Cookie, there will be a small reveal of the console in the mid-2019, followed up by a big reveal at PSX. But he also clarifies that this might change. He also adds that Sony will reveal the PlayStation 5 the same kind of way they did with the PlayStation 4, but again, this could change. Now PSX, if you don't know, is more known as the PlayStation Experience event. So if all this is true, Sony is planning on showing a lot more information on the PlayStation in December of 2019. Now in terms of specs, Cookie is assuring that PlayStation 5 will be a monster, priced at $500 US. Sony will be fitting the PlayStation 5 with a Ryzen 8-core processor. Now is he talking about Navi and Zen 2 perhaps? Makes me wonder. Now taking a look at the leaked chart with all the SKUs, AMD could be using a modified Ryzen 3600GX. This is looking to be an 8-core processor clocked at 3.6 GHz and 20 compute units for the graphics. But again, guys, don't forget, AMD will be making custom CPU and graphics chips for Sony and Microsoft for their upcoming Xbox and PlayStation. Remember, see my custom, right? So they won't obviously be using the 3600GX, but it still gives us an idea what is possible on the new 7nm process. Cookie adds that the PlayStation 5 will be able to handle 4K at 60 FPS as well, which seems very likely given these specifications. He's also talking about PlayStation VR now being built into the console, new VR controllers, and that Sony is also testing gloves to go with the VR. Very interesting. Lastly, as of right now, no one seems to know what the PlayStation 5 is going to look like. There are dev kits out for the developers already testing and making games as we're speaking, but no official box for the console yet. Anyway, an article from WCCF Tech asked a Sony representative about the possibility of fitting a Navi 12 in the upcoming PlayStation 5, but the answer was no. It's more likely gonna be a Navi 10, so that points towards a possible Navi 10 instead. So with this all information in mind, when can we expect to hear Sony speak more about the possibility of showing off the PlayStation 5? Well, according to the analyst Daniel Ahmed, Sony could possibly show off the first signs of the PlayStation 5 on the GDC event, the Game Developers Conference, which is gonna be held in San Francisco between March 18th and March 22, so very soon, in other words. With that being said, going back to the performance again and the Navi 10 possibility, Apisak, a guy that is known for leaking tons of news regarding the AMD and Zen and other hardware as well, recently posted this picture on Twitter. AMD Gonzalo, followed up by a long string of characters and numbers. And these strings of characters and numbers is a reminiscence of AMD's internal codename for early processor copies. From this can be seen that the processor has 8 core with the base frequency of 1.6 GHz and a turbo max frequency of 3.2 GHz. Well, 8 cores you say? Well, that rhymes pretty well with the Cookie's PlayStation 5 rumors on Reddit as well. Makes me wonder, could this be the upcoming processor for PlayStation 5 perhaps? Now, many gamers have been asking frequently if Sony will start supporting backward compatibility, and there are rumors pointing towards PS4 backward compatibility, and that they would be fairly easy to accomplish since PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 will be speaking the same kind of language when it comes to architecture, the x86. But if PlayStation 5 will be able to run PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 and even PlayStation 3 games is still unknown. Now, at at this time the company has applied for a patent for a technology that will enable backward compatibility for previous consoles right back to the original PlayStation 1. Behind the solution is the chief architect of PlayStation 4, Mark Cerny. Now this, however, does not guarantee that the patent will become a reality, but it seems like Sony is trying here. So to try and wrap this all up, this is basically what the rumors are pointing towards. PlayStation 5 will be released in 2020, either in March next year or in November. It will be launched with the price tag of around $500 and it will be fitted with a Zen 2 Ryzen 8 core processor or a Zen Plus architecture, possible clocked at 1.6 GHz and turbo at 3.2, along with Navi 10 graphics powerful enough to deliver 4K at 60 FPS. What rumors also are saying is that PlayStation 5 will be getting at least 8 GB of VRAM, which makes a lot of sense, knowing that the RTX 2060 struggles with its 6 GB onboard memory at 4K resolution. Now PlayStation VR will be built into the console, and whether PlayStation 5 will allow backward compatibility, we still don't know yet. It seems like Sony wanna make this happen, so I guess it comes down to how complicated it is to make these older games run without stutter on the PlayStation 5. Now I wanna know your thoughts, guys. Does 2020 seems reasonable to you? What do you think about the price tag? Now I'm gonna be back with a brand new video tomorrow, guys. Until then, have an awesome day, right?